and this is Justice Pending. Before we get started, I'm excited to share something new. I'm launching a monthly, in-person, live on the road Texas Justice Tour featuring Justice Pending, where I'll take you deeper into the cases that keep me up at night, including missing persons, unsolved murders, and cold cases still waiting for answers. Each month, I'll be joined by a co-host. Check out show dates and locations in the link in the description, and I hope to see you at the show.
This is a Rogue Media Network podcast.
Do you ever have a story that you just can't get out of your head?
One that you play the details of over and over with your friends?
Well, you've come to the right place. I'm Claire.
And I'm Susan.
And this is Justice Pending,
a weekly true crime podcast where we discuss tantalizing crimes with more questions than answers.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Justice Pending. I'm Claire.
And I'm Susan.
So, I don't think I've ever felt this unsettled by a story after I finished reading it.
I completely agree with you, and it's not because this is shocking in any traditional true crime way. It's really more about the twist of it all.
Oh yeah, it's deeply unsettling because it forces us to question an accepted storyline that may not actually be what really happened, Susan.
That's right. I love a disruptor in any industry, and this story is, disruption in all kinds of forms in the true crime world. So let's get into it. Today, we're talking about Buford Pusser, a legendary Tennessee sheriff, folk hero, and the inspiration for the 1973 film Walking Tall.
Yes, this guy's story has been told as a morality play, right? Good versus evil, the lawman taking down the mob, and in a key point, a husband avenging his murdered wife.
Yeah, except that new investigative findings suggest that this story may not just be wrong, it may be totally inverted.
Yeah, so the center of it all is a woman whose name most people barely remember, but it's Pauline Pusser. And she was the wife of Buford Pusser, the legendary sheriff. And you know what? She might have died at his hands, Susan.
Yeah, so if anyone knows this story at all, it's through the film Walking Tall. You want to talk about the
Yeah, so, the original, it was 1973. I'm most familiar with the remake in 2004 with Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, who played the lead role based on Buford Pusser. He was, a sheriff cleaning up corruption with his own two hands, much like The Rock. Buford was a former wrestler, right? So it's a really popular story that has a kind of tidy narrative that makes you think, okay, I know who the good guy is, and it's definitely Buford Pusser, right?
Yeah, it has all of the key characters you want, and it is very tidy. I think that's a good word for it, the movie. And really the emotional core of the movie is Pauline, his wife, and it's his wife who's murdered in an ambush that was actually meant for Buford.
Yeah, so her death becomes the justification for everything that follows. And the idea that, she was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. She was this innocent victim caught by, gunfire that was raining down on her husband, who was the righteous, law-abiding sheriff. That's a very all-American story, right, Susan?
It really, you got revenge, violence, vigilante justice. It's all there. It's all there.
Yeah, absolutely. And, what struck me reading this is how quickly Pauline disappears from the narrative, even in her death. She's there 1 minute, she's the loving wife, and then suddenly she's just like a symbol, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's very because it becomes about him, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he's the main character. He's got main character energy, as the
Oh,
kids say.
totally.
And, this is Hollywood written all over it. It's wonderful.
Absolutely. So the latest retelling of this,
Mm,
going deep, I discovered in a recent issue of Rolling Stone magazine, and this is the headline, Susan. I
mm.
I absolutely love this headline. He was a legendary sheriff who inspired a movie. Did he also murder his wife?
Yeah, I mean, it says it all right there. It
Yeah.
says but,
I mean, yeah, I was familiar with the Hollywood version of the Walking Tall story, but I had no idea that the real version of events was completely different.
I think most people, including then investigators, also did not know. So, again, I love when people take fresh eyes to an old case. I
Yeah.
think it's wonderful to have the truth come out. Or at least a different perspective. So let's back up though and talk about Pauline, who is actually the crux of this story. So she was, maiden name Mullins. Pauline Mullins was born in Virginia, rural Virginia. She's the oldest of 6 kids.
Yes, she definitely had a rough life that was full of hard choices and plenty of injustice of her own. She did not grow up, in the best of circumstances. She had a rough childhood. It's just well documented that she was, going through a lot of hard things in her life, like so many people, just poverty, family issues. So she doesn't come into this like a storybook character. It's not exactly a fairy tale when she meets Buford.
Yes, and when she does finally meet Buford, she's 28 years old. She'd already been married. She already has 3 children. Buford was just 21, so she went for a younger man there.
Yep.
And he was kind of already gaining this reputation as a brawler. I mean, you think back to that main character
Yeah.
of him, and that's his reputation at the time when she meets him.
Right. Like he was getting into amateur wrestling. He was known like not just for street fighting, but for actually fighting as attempting to make this his profession. And people who knew Pauline, described her as someone who was just constantly trying to keep things together, to keep her family together, to put food on the table. She was, hard scrabble.
Yeah, and Buford himself was a hard worker too. I
Yeah.
mean, he, wanted to be a wrestler, which makes sense that they cast The Rock as him in the remake. But then he got into law enforcement, which isn't that's not a far jump. That's great. And he quickly rose in the ranks. And he was elected sheriff when he was just 26 years old.
Yes. So, according to the Rolling Stone article, he was the youngest sheriff in the history of Tennessee. I don't
Good
know if
for
that's still
him.
true. Probably. It
Yeah.
probably is true. So, Pauline came to work with him. She ran the sheriff's department's books. She was cooking for the prisoners. And, it was a real like mom and pop operation down at the sheriff's department.
I love it.
Yeah.
But I think, she privately I don't think this was her aspiration and goals in life. She was really looking for a way out,
Yeah.
while keeping it all together. But in the weeks leading up to her murder, multiple people confirmed that she was actually planning to leave Buford.
Yeah, so there were no official like reports of domestic violence, but there were lots of conversations that she'd had with friends, neighbors, other people that she said things were not good between her and Buford, and she was wanting to take her kids and get out of there.
Yeah, and it's not like that. That's she was probably herself a fighter in her own
Yeah.
way. But and for survival and mama bear,
Yep.
she's really looking out for her family. But Buford himself was, I mean, that's a hard nut to crack. He was large,
Yes.
literally and figuratively. He was 6'6". He's a wrestler. He's a sheriff. He has
Yeah.
power. He has
Oh my
control.
gosh. Yes. Yeah.
So, this is easier said than done.
Definitely. And this is also, a different time. This
Yeah.
is the 1960s,
Right.
right?
Right.
So she was not able to just say she wanted a divorce, irreconcilable differences.
Right.
1960s in Tennessee, you
Yeah.
have to have cause to
Right.
get a divorce. You have to show that someone's at fault. So I don't think there would have been too difficult to show that a normal person who was physically violent was at fault. But again, you have the sheriff. You're married to the sheriff.
Yeah.
So you're not just going up against a regular guy, you're going up against the good old boy system. So this was quite a challenge for Pauline. And she was trying to, put her arms around how to do it. And this was a scary thing for her, as it is for so many women who are involved in domestically violent relationships and try to get out. I mean, I know the statistics. The most dangerous time for a woman looking to leave an abusive husband is the moment that they leave, right? The idea that they know that they're walking out that door and they're not going to come back, that's the greatest threat to their life. And, we have so much information about Buford Pusser because of his legend. He, is not this unknown figure. We like to think that maybe someone like Buford could be like tough to the outside world, but be tender at home, like a big teddy bear. But it doesn't seem like that was the case, does it, Susan?
No, I mean, he sort of cultivated this legend, or maybe that's just how he was. But he had this knack for coming out on top and always
Yeah.
being the hero. There were, things he was involved in his line of work. I'll give you
Yep.
that. But like car accidents, knife attacks, shootouts, he always survived.
Yep.
He was always the hero. And then when you look more closely, a pattern tends to emerge, which 2020 always hindsight, I get it,
Yep.
but people tended to die around Buford. And often it was when no one else was present.
Yeah, that part's really interesting and suspicious because there are two people that he shot while claiming self-defense with no other witnesses. And that raises some serious questions, especially in the light of Pauline's death.
Yeah, I mean, he probably wore this shield because
Yeah.
of his shield, his badge, right? So I don't think people are going to necessarily at the time second guess him or question him
Right.
because he has this, he's the good guy here,
Yeah.
right? But let's talk about the night that Pauline died. So it's August 12th, 1967.
Early morning before dawn, Buford gets a disturbance call.
And we already know that Pauline's, right along with him as
Right.
far as sheriff duties go. So it would maybe seem strange to us, but Pauline does go with him. It does
Yeah.
immediately raise questions, but like we know that she's sort of involved in the department. So
Right.
I mean,
Yeah, it's like one thing to go into the office and work on the books and
that's right.
cook, a big pot of soup for the prisoners, but it's another to get up in the middle of the night, 4 a.m,
Yeah.
and say, I'm going to go with you on a disturbance call. Like, this is
Yeah. It's not like she's his backup.
right.
She's his
Right.
admin.
Yeah, she shouldn't be, right? She's not wearing a bulletproof vest. She's
Right.
so when they get to the scene, shots are fired and Pauline is killed. Buford himself is wounded and he calls it in and claims that he was ambushed.
Yeah, by enemies.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, everyone's sort of skeptical at this
Yep.
point. Mostly, they're thinking, okay, well, why would Pauline get in the cart for, so early in the morning, 4:45
Yes.
in the morning? Why isn't Buford calling for proper backup? Why is he going on his own?
Yeah.
There's also no autopsy.
Yeah, this is nuts, Susan. This is the biggest one for me. So, there's no question that Pauline is shot and is the victim of a homicide. So, Police Work 101 says you do an autopsy. You discover how she was injured, where was she shot, how many times was she shot. I mean, this is information that every investigation needs to have, and it wasn't done.
Right. And who orders that? Is that, or who could step in to prevent it? The sheriff, for example?
Sure. Yes. And well, he's also the next of kin. So he
Ah,
has
right.
double duty here.
Right.
Not only, usually if someone is shot, the police department or the sheriff's department, law enforcement will make that standard protocol to do an autopsy. If you die outside, of a hospital, there's supposed to be an autopsy. But the next of kin, if there's no investigation, there's no law enforcement activity, can say, "Oh, I'd prefer not to have an autopsy." For example, someone dies at home. They're elderly. We know that they had problems. They don't want to go through the autopsy process, and so they would decline it. But in this situation, I see no reason why there wouldn't be an autopsy. I don't care how penny pinching you are. It
Right.
doesn't make sense.
Right. I mean, it is very, very odd. And wasn't there some actual evidence of this crime later?
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a bit, but yeah, it surfaces a few miles away from the scene, which kind of points to the idea that this could have been um, tampered with. So, I mean, let's talk about the fact that Pauline's murder is never solved. It's just accepted that she was ambushed by his
Enemy.
enemies. Yeah, yeah.
So why are enemies calling for a the whole thing really doesn't add up if you think about it.
It definitely doesn't. And yet, this version of events becomes gospel. It becomes the script for a movie.
Oh yeah, and by the way, he's reelected sheriff. They make a
Yes.
movie. There's
Oh, yeah.
like, all kinds of like hoopla surrounding
Right.
it. And then Pauline, instead of becoming a victim, becomes like an idea.
Right. The idea of the murdered wife that needs to be avenged
Yeah.
by her sheriff husband.
Yeah.
And I mean, gosh, there's so many movies that have taken a very similar storyline, right? They have a loved one who's murdered, and then they, what is it, John Wick, right? There's one.
Yep. Yep.
They go on a tear, right? But let's talk about how the narrative changed. So there's a reporter who says, "Wait a minute,"
Yep.
and comes on the scene.
Cammy Wilson is not taking this lying down.
So she's a reporter who went to the county in Tennessee, McNairy County, after Walking Tall came out and decided to do her own investigation into Buford Pusser, Pauline, and everything that followed.
Yeah, I mean, she didn't enter this, taking his word for it as any good investigative reporter would. You'd look at, what are the facts of the case, and what she found really scared her. People were not willing to talk. She uncovered bribes, contradictions, just it wasn't adding up to her. And when she dug deeper, it even more did not add up for her.
Right. Of course, at this time, Buford, attacked her credibility as many people who are rightfully accused of something. They want to deflect attention away from themselves. They don't want to talk about the facts. They're going to go after the reporter. They're going to go after the source, and really tried to show that this wasn't the case. This wasn't a credible argument, but history didn't disprove this narrative, did not disprove what Cammy Wilson had to say. Instead, it really looked very critically at what Buford Pusser had to say.
That's right. I mean, we talked about other suspicious shootings. One of them was in 1966, and this is one where Buford claimed self-defense when he shot and killed a woman working at a hotel called the Shamrock Hotel.
Yeah. So this was a year before Pauline's murder,
Mhm.
right? And this woman's name was Louise Hatchcock. It's complicated, but Buford had a grudge against her boss. And he had once filed an attempted murder complaint against Buford.
Huh.
So there was kind of some bad blood there.
Yeah.
It was like a family hotel business, and so they were related. So it's not totally random that this is a person that Buford would want out of the picture, right? Luis actually did have an autopsy, and guess what, Susan?
What, Claire?
It showed that she'd been shot twice in the back.
Yeah, that doesn't exactly sound to me like self-defense if someone's turned away from you. But
Right.
I guess, when you're the sheriff, anything can go.
That's it, right? I mean, there you go. That's about the only justification I can think of for how being shot twice in the back could be a self-defense. Like, it just doesn't it
Yeah.
doesn't add up.
And
And
then
there's even another suspicious shooting.
that's right.
Yeah. So
And
just like Pauline and Louise, Buford is the only witness to this one.
yeah, this is now Christmas Day of all days, 1968. Sheriff Buford Pusser responds to a drunken, disorderly call and ends up shooting and killing Charles Russ Hamilton.
Right. So Hamilton himself was a convicted murderer, so no one really looked too hard at that one. But still, we're talking about 3 murders in 3 years.
Yeah, and this is a guy, a hero.
Yep.
And they, at this point, is he technically, if he's responsible for all this shootings, a serial killer? I mean, it's just
Yeah.
so interesting that everyone grasped onto the "I'll avenge my wife" and didn't really pay attention to these other surrounding incidents.
Yeah, I mean, that's a huge swing. Local sheriff hero to suspected serial killer. I cannot, in 3 years too. Like, this is a very um this is a very deadly guy who's not just shooting one person by accident, in the heat of the line of work that he's in, but it kind of seems like he's eliminating people that he has problems with.
Yeah, which, I don't know that I want to give him the title serial killer, although I think that is technically correct. I think this is murders of convenience or
Yeah.
heat of the moment. So, but still, I mean, I wouldn't want to be around this guy.
Yeah, no kidding. Okay, so let's fast forward some decades here. Let's get to from the 1960s to 2025. What happens with the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation?
Well, they quietly reopen Pauline's case and they find new witnesses, lost evidence, and statements that were never taken.
Yes. So this is an extremely bold thing to do. Not only are they looking at a cold case murder, but they decide to go ahead and exhume Pauline's body after 58 years.
That is bold, but remember, there was never an autopsy done. So,
Yeah.
her husband, the sheriff, didn't order one. And as you said, next of kin, I mean, there were, he had everything covered, or so he thought. But even all these years later, the evidence was actually still there. And Pauline had been shot twice in the back of the head. What does that sound like?
Yeah, it sounds very familiar. So it contradicts Buford's original account that they were ambushed and bullets are flying from every direction.
Right.
It's actually just one direction,
Yeah.
right in the back of the head. Sounds like an execution.
It does. It does. And it's also shown in the autopsy that she had a recently healed broken nose, which, does lead us to believe there was domestic violence.
Yeah, it's another situation where we don't have records. We don't know how she got that broken nose, but Pauline wasn't the wrestler.
Right.
Pauline wasn't the one, getting into street fights. I think it's pretty reasonable to think that came at the hands of her husband.
And what is she going to do? Walk into the sheriff's office and file a complaint against her husband, the sheriff? Like, no, it's not going to happen.
Exactly.
He's not going to let it happen.
Yeah. Yeah. It's it's really is just so tragic. And the district attorney concluded that if he was still alive today, Buford Pusser would be indicted for his wife Pauline's murder.
Which is just so sad that he
Yeah.
lived and got away with it. But he has been dead for decades now. He was actually killed in a car crash in 1974. And they, at the time, found his blood alcohol level twice the legal limit. So I don't think you have to put two and two together there to see what.
Right. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was a single car accident. He was
Yeah.
driving his Corvette. He was drunk. It was not a pretty picture. And he, ended his life, whether you consider that suicide or just reckless behavior. He would never have to answer for his crimes. There cannot be a trial. We'll never be able to have that moment where the case is heard before a jury and we get sort of the clean justice that everybody wants in a court of law. But we did get something.
Yeah. I mean, justice isn't always about naming a perpetrator, but so often it is, and having that closure.
Yeah.
So like 60, almost 60 years later, Pauline's story is finally told properly.
Yeah, I think just separating the myth from reality is so important. And the idea that like Buford Pusser could have been the inspiration
Yeah.
for this Walking Tall movie, but that his actual life was so much messier, so much more complicated, and that Pauline was not just this damsel in distress that he, was trying to protect and then she was killed. I mean, that's not the story at all. And it's such an insult to her and to women everywhere, quite frankly, to reduce her life to that. And that's not even the true story.
Yeah. I mean, that's, I'd like to think that's what our podcast is about. Justice Pending is about these buried truths, and
Yes.
we try to bring them to light. This Rolling Stone article certainly did, and
Yeah.
thrilled to be able to talk about it now.
Yeah, I agree. I think that putting things out in the public, sunlight is the best medicine. I firmly believe that. So, yeah, I'm glad that we got to talk about Pauline today and the fact that she's not just a plot device. She was a real person and she was murdered and she deserves justice.
That's right. So thanks for joining us on another episode of Justice Pending, and we'll be back next week with an all-new case.
Justice Pending is recorded in Dallas, Texas for Rebel Studios. It's hosted by me, Claire Sanama, and Susan Passoni. Our theme music is Bending Truth, licensed at premiumbeat.com. We appreciate all listener feedback. Leave a review wherever you're listening right now, and we might read it on the air. Thanks for joining us.
This has been a Rogue Media Network production.